Thinkific is one of the most popular course creation platforms, and it can also be used to sell communities, digital downloads, and memberships. But with so many online business platforms available, you may be wondering how Thinkific actually works and if it's really right for you. So that's exactly what we're going to cover today, starting with a plan comparison. Now, as of the time of this recording, Thinkific's lowest priced plan is called Basic. They don't offer a free plan, but you can start a free trial by visiting witandwire.com/Thinkific. Transparently, that's my partner link, but this video is not sponsored. Now, there are a lot of things to appreciate about the Basic plan. First, there are no additional transaction fees, which is unlike many competitors. And perhaps their biggest advantage is that Thinkific allows you to create an unlimited number of courses as well as 5 digital products on their Basic plan. This is quite generous. And if you compare Thinkific versus competitors, you'll see that often the number of products that you can create and sell is what is most limited on the cheapest tier. That said, there is one notable feature that is on the next level up, which is called Start, and that is the ability to use payment plans or subscription plans. So if you already know that you want to sell a membership, or if you have a program that you would like to break into installments, you're going to have to be on the Start plan in order to do that. Today, I'm going to move forward with the Basic plan, and I'm going to start a free trial, and I will meet you in the admin dashboard. On the left, we have the main menu. And to highlight just a few key areas, we have products where you can add or edit any of these product types. We have sales where you can track past orders, and you can use other tools like coupons, order bumps, and bundles to sell your digital products long-term. Then under users, you can see everyone who has either purchased from you or accessed something for free. And under analytics, you can see past revenue metrics as well as engagement metrics within your products. And of course, there are a lot of different sub-menu items that you can explore. The Learner Hub is where buyers log in to access their products. So we'll edit that shortly. And then in the bottom section, you have the option to edit your account, which refers to you, the account holder, as well as settings, which refer to your entire Thinkific site. We also have integrations, which you're welcome to explore. And at the bottom, you can use Thinkific's Resource Center anytime, or the question mark if you'd like to get out. Now let's head over to customize some of our essential settings. On the Site tab, I recommend updating your site name to your business name. So let me click Save to lock in that change. Next, under Site Emails, I recommend using your support email. So if needed, you can change that here and click Save. And then under Site URL, you have the option to use a Thinkific URL, which you can edit here. But you also have the option to add a custom URL if you prefer to use one that you've purchased. So if needed, you can follow these instructions to get that set up. Now, I'm going to skip the rest of these settings, but I will note that you can only remove Thinkific's branding if you're on the Grow Plan or Higher, at least as of the time of this recording. But that wraps the essential settings I wanted to change, and let's go to learning content to talk about branding and your logo. There aren't a ton of options here, but this is where you can set the primary color and font for your Thinkific site. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to a Wit and Wire branded color. And under fonts, you can see just a limited list of options. So maybe for today, I'll pick Open Sans. But if you are someone who knows you want something more custom, it is possible on higher paid plans with Thinkific, but I would explore that more fully under plans before making a commitment. Then under logo, you can upload one from your computer. So I'll go ahead and do that. Let's save those changes. And now when I click Preview Branding, this will show me the Learner Hub. So this is what my buyers will see when they log in. And you can see my logo on the top, my primary color, and my selected font. We'll come back to this shortly. For now, I will close this tab to head back to Settings to talk about accepting payments. Thinkific Payments is a built-in payment processor that allows you to accept payments and manage payouts, orders, and refunds directly from your Thinkific admin dashboard. It's powered by Stripe, and they'll ask you for your business name and tax information in the initial one-time setup, which takes about 5 minutes. If eligible, this also allows you to collect sales tax in the US and Canada, as well as VAT in the UK and EU. But I recommend checking out Thinkific's help articles to see if your country is eligible. And this is not tax nor financial advice. And if needed, I would recommend consulting with a professional to see what's right for you and your business. Now we're ready to create an online course. This is one type of product you can create and sell with Thinkific. So let's click Create a Course to get started. Optionally, you can use this built-in AI tool to generate your course outline, but I prefer to do that on my own. So I'm going to click Skip to get started from scratch. Before we create lessons, let's go over to Settings to name our course. You can change this at any time, so this name isn't permanent. I'll also scroll down so I can add a course image, sometimes called a course thumbnail. This is what buyers see when they log into their student dashboard called the Learner Hub, as well as on checkout. And you can see Thinkific's suggested dimensions right here if you want to create an image in something like Canva. So I'll upload something from my computer. Let's hit save, and we'll head back over to curriculum to talk about adding chapters and lessons. A chapter groups related lessons together. It's sometimes called a module, but this is the term in Thinkific. So let's add a new chapter and click Save. I can also drag and drop to rearrange chapters or lessons, and I'll rename this by clicking Untitled Chapter, and we'll call this Course Planning. Next, let's add lessons to our first chapter. So I'm going to add a lesson and give it a title. You can hit Enter to save the new title, and I'll add a few more lessons before we add content. I'll click back into the first lesson so we can talk about adding videos. On the right, you can see the lesson toolbar, and one option gives you the ability to add videos directly to this lesson. It's noteworthy that you can't record and edit videos using Thinkific, and that's true of most standard course creation platforms. So I'll include recommendations in the description for my favorite recording and editing tools. But once you have your finished video files, you can drag and drop them in here, and I'll do that with a brief example. Once it's uploaded, you can also click onto the video if you'd like to adjust any settings. For example, maybe I'd like to change the video thumbnail, so I'll upload an image from my computer. I'm happy with that, so I'll close this tab and head back to my lesson. And if I refresh the page, we should be able to see that new thumbnail. Let's also talk about adding PDFs and resources. It's noteworthy that I'm using the beta version of Thinkific's new lesson editor. So I'll actually show you the old version in a moment. But in the new version, a major change is the fact that you can add multiple blocks to an individual lesson, and you can rearrange them. For example, I can add text to a lesson, and maybe I would add some instructions here about the assignment. I can edit this at any time, but I can also rearrange the blocks to put the text above or below the video, and I can also add PDFs. So let me add an example for my computer. This gives students view-only access to the PDF within this window, but as of the time of this recording, it doesn't give them the ability to download it. So if you use the beta lesson builder, you'll have to use the text area to link to that file hosted externally in something like Google Drive or in Dropbox, if that makes sense. Otherwise, if you do want to provide downloadables, or if you want to use lesson types that you don't see here on the right, you'll have to use the classic lesson builder. So let me pull up a new course to show you the difference. First, I'll add a chapter, and this looks the same as before or quite similar. So we'll call this Signature System, set lessons to draft by default, and click Save. But when I add a new lesson, you can really see the main difference. In the classic lesson builder, different lessons have different types. So a video lesson would have different features from a text-only lesson or a quiz lesson. So if I were to add a new video lesson, and we'll give it the same title, the Course Lab Blueprint, now I can either choose a video from my library, which I'll go ahead and do, or I can upload a new video file if needed. Below the video, you do still have the option to add text or add a download. So this would be downloadable by students. I'll save this lesson to add it to my outline. And I'll add another lesson, perhaps with the PDF viewer, just so that you can see that the selections are different. I don't have as many options. If I choose a different lesson type like a quiz, this gives me all different selections. So you can see the classic builder has both more features and more limitations, because if you wanted to maybe add 2 videos in a lesson, or if you wanted to put text above the video, you don't have that flexibility here. So I think the direction of the new lesson builder is certainly more flexible, and I expect Thinkific will continue to add features to it. But since it is so new, You may find that you prefer the classic editor, at least for the time being. Let's also preview the course from the student perspective because the classic and new editors have a slightly different look. Let's start with a preview of the classic course editor. The sidebar shows all chapters and individual lessons, and they're checked off as the student marks each one as complete. You can see my logo and primary site color in use on the top left and the button, but aside from toggling to dark mode, that's about all you can customize in this classic view. By comparison, here's a preview of the initial course we built with the new lesson editor. It uses iterations of my primary site color shown on the continue button in the sidebar and for the active lesson. So there's not a huge difference between the two, but I did want to point out the fact that newer courses will use this newer user experience. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about course strategy and how to launch a new signature course, you'll find links to our best free Wit and Wire resources in the description, as well as info on how I personally work with online business owners through Wit and Wire's programs. Next, let's set your course price. To do that, you'll head back to Courses and select the product that you're working on, and I'll head over to the Pricing tab. By default, it is a free course, but I want to change it to a one-time payment. From here, I will just set a fictional price of $100, and I'm going to skip enrollment duration, but this would allow you to grant access for just a set amount of time. Below, you can also see options to use a subscription plan or a monthly payment plan. These are only available on the start plan or above, and as a reminder, I'm currently on the basic plan. But just to tell you the difference, a subscription will recur until it's canceled, so this is typically associated with ongoing memberships, while a monthly payment plan breaks a larger amount into smaller installments, but it has an end date. So it might be something like 4 payments of $250 for a total of $1,000. It's noteworthy that you might also need to upgrade to start or above if you want to have multiple price points for the same product. For example, if I wanted to have both a one-time payment as well as a payment plan available, I would need to be on the start plan in order to do so. So I think that's a noteworthy consideration with Thinkific. For now, I will hit save, and I can now see a direct link to the checkout page, though it will remain grayed out as long as this product is still in draft mode. But while we're on the topic, let's talk about Thinkific's checkout pages. Truthfully, there's not a ton you can customize, and that's because Thinkific uses a universal checkout page design for all of your products. The only thing you can edit is on the Settings tab. We've been here before where we added the course image, and you can also add a description. So both of these will appear on your checkout page, though that's really the extent of the customization available. Here's an example from Amanda Schoenberg's business called Baking for Business. So on the left, I see her product image, which happens to be for a membership community. Then we have the product name and brief description, and the button represents her brand color. These are the only tweaks you can really make to this page, which otherwise has a white background and pretty standard fields along the right. Here's another example from Girl Boss, who's put their logo on the top left. But again, we see the product image, title, and description, as well as the price point and standard Thinkific design. The only other thing you can add at checkout is called an order bump. So let me show you what that looks like. In this fictional example from Thinkific, we can see the main product is a course called Mastering Pizza. But below it, the buyer has the option to check a box to add a second product called Learn About Hot Dogs to their purchase. This special offer is called an order bump. And you'll notice there's currently a savings of $50 or 50% off the standard price, which is a common part of the order bump strategy so that it's truly a special offer for buyers of the main product. You can try it out yourself in the sales menu under order bumps, but it's noteworthy that you'll need to be on Thinkific Payments in order to set them up and be eligible. Next, let's create your course sales page. To start, I'll head back to Courses and select the active course we've been working on, and I'll click Landing Page to get started. From here, I can edit what's called the slug at the end of my URL, and maybe I would have it match the name of my program. And I'll click Edit Page to go into the full page editor. Before I talk about adding or editing sections, let's click the paintbrush icon to talk about the theme. Now, this is a global theme, which means it's applied to all landing pages across my Thinkific site, not just this individual product. You can start with the first dropdown if you want to use one of their existing presets, So for example, maybe I'll choose neutral, and that will change the colors and fonts on the page. Or you can start from what they call the blank theme at the bottom. And from here, I'll edit my colors. Again, you can select one of their designer picks as a starting point, or you can edit your palette if you want to select individual colors yourself. I've added mine, so let's go back to colors and back to the theme to talk about fonts. This is where you can set a default header and paragraph font. So I'll go ahead and select some options from these dropdowns. That looks good for today. So let's go back to our theme and end with corners. This is where you can decide if you prefer sharper corners or a more rounded corner on edges for things like buttons and images. So if I adjust the rounding, you can see how it changes on the button. Same thing here. You can see how it just softens the corner. So this is just a personal brand decision. Maybe for today, I'll go with this slight rounded corner, and that will set up my universal landing page theme, and I can go ahead and click close. Now we're ready to talk about adding and editing sections. At the very top, you can see the plus icon, and this gives me the option to add a section. You can see there are different categories like CTA or call to action with a few starter templates. If I go to testimonials, here's another example where this just has one option, but that doesn't mean you can't customize it. These are just starting points. If I close this, you can also see existing sections on the page. For example, this section just shows my course image. I don't think it looks great, so I'm actually going to go ahead and just delete it. And let's replace that with a new header at the top. And I'm going to go with banner image. And I can still replace this, but maybe I'm just happier with the layout. Once you click into a specific section, you can see there are individual elements that you can edit. For example, you can click into the text, and if you double click, you can go ahead and change what's written. Same thing with an image. If you click directly on the element, you'll be given a set of options to, in this case, upload a new image and decide how it should be positioned. If you click different element types, you'll see different options. In this section, I start to see testimonial blocks. So I have the option to add an image, or I can change the way that it's styled to just show text only or add a video. And I can also rearrange them. But this testimonial block isn't terribly customizable. And one thing that you might notice in general about Thinkific's sales page builder or landing page builder is the fact that you do have all of the essentials to create a page. You can add sections, you can rearrange them, and you can change the content. But if you're used to other website builders, this might feel a bit limited. You can also use the paintbrush icon to style a given section. So there are 3 styles: primary, secondary, and accent. Or you could override the background color for a specific section. So using these helps give your page a sense of brand consistency, but sometimes you might need to override that color, and you could choose anything from this dropdown, or you could choose an image. Perhaps that's a better use case. And by the way, if I click cancel, I've actually just now ended up under the edit section button where you can change up the layout, or this is the page that we just saw. So it sent me in a bit of a circle, but both of these icons can help you edit and style the section, typically the background color and the layout. You can preview the mobile view here and then toggle back to desktop. And when you're happy with your changes, you can close out of this and click save. You can edit your landing page anytime under the landing page tab, or under channels, you'll find all landing pages in one place. But before we move forward, let's see a few other examples. Here's an example from author Gretchen Rubin. And she has a video block here at the top. And she's also used some essential blocks like text only or text with image to share information. She also used the frequently asked questions block, which I didn't show before. So here's one example of how you can have these accordion style questions and answers about your course. Let's also revisit the course from Girl Boss. We saw the checkout page earlier. And in the header section, they've used an image as the background to add a bit of texture. And you can see we have a video block, we have text on the left and an image on the right, and then the reverse. We have image on the left and text on the right. And truly just using these 2 blocks in a bit of an alternating fashion can build up the majority of a lot of great sales pages. You can see here's another one, and we've continued to alternate. And then we have a list, we have a CTA block, and we also have the course curriculum. this shows the chapter names and then the lesson names, and she's chosen to use the word module, but logistically, these are 8 individual lessons built in Thinkific, and you can see the summary along the right. So that's an option, and you can see this is a good example of a call to action block that has 2 different price points. So the buyer has the option to click buy now on either and then go to the checkout page. And again, this will be familiar from what we saw before. Back in the dashboard, you might also be curious about building a website with Thinkific. And I want to clarify that while yes, you can technically build a homepage and your product landing pages with Thinkific, I wouldn't necessarily say that you could build a fully functioning website the way you might think of with Squarespace, WordPress, or Showit. So let me show you what I mean. Right now, I'm looking at the website tab, and you can see that there aren't very many pages in a default Thinkific site. We do have a homepage, which I'll pull up momentarily, but otherwise we have the all courses page and a few defaults like the thank you page, which someone sees after they make a purchase, and the sign in or sign up page, which are both very short. But if I head into the homepage and let's go into the page editor, you might notice that this looks different from the landing page editor we used for the sales page. And I believe this is a bit older. I think the landing page editor is a bit newer. But here, if I add a new section, you'll see a different list of options, though there is some overlap. And then if you click that section and you click the edit button, that brings up a set of editing tools in the sidebar. For example, I could change the text. And if I scroll down further, I could change the background color to my primary or secondary. What's interesting about this is the fact that this color is not one of the defaults I set when we built the sales page. So it's noteworthy that the website pages are currently built using a different tool and a different set of theme decisions like colors and fonts compared to your landing pages. The other thing you might notice is that there's not an about page or anything like that by default. I'm going to click back. And by the way, these are the theme settings where we were mentioning the different styles. So these are defaults if you want to just use one of Thinkific's, or you might go into colors. And this is the area where we were looking at the secondary color, the page color. These are the things that affect the website pages, but not your landing pages. But in any case, I'm actually going to close out of this and discard those changes just to, again, talk about adding pages like a custom page. If you wanted to truly build your full website using Thinkific, you could add a custom page and have an about page or add other options. But things like a blog are going to be out of scope in Thinkific. And I think it just depends on how in-depth you want your website to be. So if it could be very basic and you really just need the essentials, maybe this could work for you. But I would also say a common decision business owners make is to use Thinkific as more of a product site for just their courses or community and the login and the access. And then they use something like WordPress, Squarespace, or Showit for the majority of pages on their website. But of course, the decision is ultimately up to you. Let's also talk about selling digital downloads. In the products menu, let's click add a new digital download. This is like an ebook or a guide. And once again, I'm going to skip to start from scratch. The setup here is quite simple. You'll select your content type, and maybe I will choose template, and then you'll pick the file from your computer. I also added a product name, and below I'll add the image. I threw in a description as well, and we will save those settings. Remember, both of these will appear on your checkout page. So now you can see a little bit of a preview on the right. And now if we head over to pricing, we have a one-time payment set up for $25, and you could get a direct link to checkout here if needed. And finally, you could create a landing page. And this is the exact same builder we saw when we created our online course sales page. When you're ready to sell, you'll hit publish and publish now. And at this point, it would be ready for sale. And you can start sharing the direct link that they've shown you on screen. Let's also take a look at your Thinkific community. On the basic and start plans, you can have one community found under the communities tab. So let's click in and see what it looks like. This community tab is part of the larger Learner Hub. So earlier on, we saw a preview of the Home tab, but now it's a little bit more in context. So optionally, you could add a welcome message here This is what buyers see anytime they log into their Thinkific site. But we're going to focus on the community tab, and we'll talk about two things. First, we'll talk about posts. You can add anything here, and I'll just write a quick message. And you can include things like files or videos, emojis, and there's some basic text editing. Once somebody submits a message, other people can react or reply. And of course, this would grow over time. For right now, I just happen to be the only one here. Then let me go over to announcements just to show you that while you have 4 spaces by default, they're all customizable. So if you head to the gear icon, you can change the name or icon. You can set a description if the space has a clear purpose. And you can also decide who has access, who can post, and set an image. You may notice at the top that you can have 5 total spaces in my current plan, which is the basic plan, and this grows on other Thinkific plans. Let me close out of this to also show you the other menu items, including events, where you can have live webinars or events that are hosted for some or all members of your community. We have the DM space, where once again, I am the only person here, so not much to do, but good to know that this is an option. And then we have the catalog and the library. The catalog is a marketplace where you can market all available products, while the library shows enrolled students access to the content that they've purchased. But what's nice about the updated Learner Hub is the fact that the products they've purchased and the community that they might have access to are all more closely linked and connected. You can also see a notification bell at the top, and you can see your profile on the bottom. And while I'm currently showing you a preview of the community, on the basic plan, you do have limited options, as we hinted at before. And one of the major limitations is the fact that you can't sell a subscription or an ongoing payment. So I just want to reiterate that realistically, if you'd like to sell a membership model, you'll likely need to be on the start tier or higher in order to do so. Let's also briefly talk about Thinkific's analytics. Right now, I'm looking at the revenue dashboard. And even though this is a demo site with no sales, I just wanted to show you a preview of which widgets and filters are included. And there's also a marketing report, which shows visitors to all pages, or you can filter by a specific page or even things like checkout conversion. I think there are a lot of really useful tools here. The other thing that's noteworthy, though, is that if you click engagement report, you'll see this is only available on the Grow plan or higher. And they do have a demo of what that looks like here, just a sample image. But I wanted to mention that you can get some analytics. For example, if you go to your video library, you can see how many views individual videos have. And under users, you can see student progress reports, though I'm not able to demo this because, again, this doesn't have any active buyers. But you can check out Thinkific's help resources if you want to learn more. So I wanted to reassure you that I actually do think you get a decent amount of analytics through Thinkific. But if your business outgrows what they offer, that's when I think the more custom enrollment and engagement reports might come into play. But for most of you, I think that what they offer on the basic and start plans should be more than enough to get started. To test it out yourself, you can visit witandwire.com/Thinkific to start a free trial. Or you'll also find more Wit and Wire resources for course creators linked in the description. If you found this video helpful, I hope you will like, comment, and subscribe below. And up next, let's talk more about the strategy behind launching a new signature course.